When I was 3 weeks old, I had a severe meningitis attack due to which I lost hearing in both my ears. But I always tell people that it's a great thing. It's a blessing in disguise. क्योंकि अगर मुझे किसी की बकवास नहीं सुननी मैं अलाउड आ सकता हूँ वैसे भी रात को तो आराम से नींद आता थी आपको बिकॉज दिस सोसाइटी वाज वेरी वेरी काइंड टू मी despite my hearing loss. I wanted to give back to the society. But we tend to only remember our icons when they passed away. And I wanted to change that. Because wherever you go, whether you go in a taxi or anywhere, politics will always be the first topic. Being politically aware is great, but we are so much more than that. My first film is called Hellhole. It's about sanitation workers, about gutter cleaners, basically. These guys would get paid 5,000 rupees every month, and somehow 1,000 wouldn't make it, so they would get 4,000.
Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to another episode of How Does It Work, a podcast by Pro Pakistani. We have a very, very special guest today, someone I've known since I was a kid and someone who's a very big inspiration for me. He's a photographer, a videographer. He's also a sort of advocate for the hard of hearing. Mobeen Ansari, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me over. It's like meeting an old friend.
Yeah. So Mobeen, here for those of for our audience who doesn't know, tell us a little bit about your story, your childhood, and how you sort of became a photographer.
So I have always been very fond of art since I learned how to walk. Basically, I have always been introverted as a result of my hearing impairment, and I believe that my hearing impairment had a lot to do with my choosing this field of wanting to observe things around myself and basically to capture them because I was always very shy as a child. And, because at that time my hearing aids used to be very big. Right now they fit into the ears. You can't see them because of my long hair. So everybody kind of used to ask, what are you wearing? So my parents used to say, just tell them it's the radio or something, But I was still very shy and I often turned to art, just sculpture, or I would often make action figures, wrestling action figures, or action figures related to Star Trek, Star Wars, which also have a lot to do with my dream of being an artist. And so in 1998, a couple of family friends and my family, we went to Kundrapat, we went to Hunza. And so my dad and I were the first people to get to Kundrapat. At that time, there was not really much there. Today, it's everywhere, right? There's a big border there. It was there by then too, but it was very minimalist at that time. So we got there, and my dad was very, very fond of photography, still is. And he took out his camera with an analog camera, with a Kodak. He took a photograph, rotated like 180 degrees, and I had no idea what he was doing. So a week later, when we came back, he printed those photographs, he flipped them over and taped them. So he created a whole panorama. That's when I realized that there's some true magic in photography. My grandparents also did a lot of photography. My grandfather was a soldier in World War II, and then he was in the army in Pakistan. So he captured a lot of those moments. And since both of them migrated from India, both of them captured a lot of moments in history. My grandmother came by sea from Mumbai to Karachi. And when she came to the Kemari port, so she took this photograph, and it's very tiny, but it's very, very historical. So in that picture, you can actually see people doing, Narai Takbir and, Allah Akbar and all of that. And it was very, very historical. It was from 1948. And so the other points of inspiration were also my uncle Tapu Javeri, who is a fashion photographer. He is my mentor, he's my guru. So a lot of these inspirations came together. And when the first digital camera came out in early 2000s, I was lucky that I had one. My dad had one, basically. And I took it with me to school, and I would take pictures of everything. My friends, my teachers, the building, nature. And for the first time, I started talking to everybody around me. And the camera made me popular, basically. So I was studying fine arts on the side while I was doing photography. So one thing complemented the other. So being a photographer helped me become a better painter or printmaker, sculptor, while the other medium helped me become a better photographer. So I haven't looked back since then.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, that's quite the journey. Could you tell me a little bit about why do you have this condition? Were you born this way? What happened?
So when I was 3 weeks old, I had a severe meningitis attack due to which I lost hearing in both my ears. And but it was not until I was about 14 months that I was actually diagnosed. So the very first doctor who checked me out, I remember my mom telling me the story. He said, "Your child is just fine. He can hear just fine." He just did like a snapped a paper next to my ear and said, "Oh, he can hear just fine." बट मॉम बीइंग मॉम, आपको पता है कि अम्मी का इंट्यूशन होता है ये, तो कहते हैं कि नहीं, आई बिलीव कि कुछ मतला है क्योंकि ही नॉट रिस्पॉन्डिंग. एंड सो she took me for a second opinion, and that is where they got to know that I was hearing impaired. And but I always tell people that it's a great thing, it's a blessing in disguise. क्योंकि अगर मुझे किसी की बकवास नहीं सुननी, मैं अलाउड आ सकता हूँ. और वैसे भी रात को तो आराम से नींद आता थी आपको. And I think, I actually take a lot of my photographs when I shut my hearing aids off, so that I can actually just focus on what I'm seeing in front of me.
Just the visuals.
Understanding everything in silence, basically. So, but this story, this journey as a hearing impaired person is a very long one. It's an ever-going one. As I grow older, there are some other, challenges, because hearing loss is not straightforward. Sometimes you have a hearing aid which had been in water, or sometimes you have a lot of noise, a background noise. If you're on a bike, you can't really talk to the person in front of you. I'm most often a passenger. I don't know how to ride a bike. Or sometimes it is adjusting to different accents or the way people talk. And also because lately I was diagnosed with Meniere's disease. Meniere's disease is it's an inner ear infection which lowers your hearing and increases auditory hallucinations. So I had that for a very bad 6 months. I sometimes still have it, but Allah ka shukr, I'm a lot better now. So I'm still navigating it, and these are just life experiences to learn from.
Yeah, no, and it's an amazing journey. How important was the role of your mother? How much did she sort of play a part in this?
I'm here because of her. And, going back to when my hearing loss was diagnosed, my khala was living in New Jersey. So, I have 2 elder brothers, and both of them studying in school. One is 7 years older than me, one is 10 years older than me, Saad and Umar. And so, at that time, Ammi really wanted me to have all the opportunity that any normal hearing peer would have. So, अब मतलब ये था कि यहाँ पे unfortunately there were not lots of resources available to parents of children with hearing loss or any challenge really. This was in 1980s, late 1980s. And so, because Khala was in New Jersey, so Ammi applied for a visa, and every day she would be in New Jersey and she would take a ride from New Jersey to New York, and she landed up in New York League of Hard of Hearing. वहाँ पे she met this hearing doctor who said, okay, we can help you, but you have 2 choices. Do you want your son to learn how to speak, or do you want him to learn how to do sign language? And in a split second, she decided she wanted me to speak. And I'm speaking to you today, all these years later. And so she was connected to John Tracy Center, lots of these places. A lot of people who have helped her along our journey, as mother and son, and obviously the rest of my family as well. So obviously Pakistan maybe she had a lot of help and support system as well. Madan maybe there was a speech therapy center where she took me. So a lot of work went into this. She still shaped my life, as a human being, in keeping in touch with people, in having that sensitivity. And Ammi is really, really amazing at, being in touch with everybody, knowing the nuances of the society as well. I know South Punjab because Ammi, make sure that she knows about everybody who we work with. Like for example, our gardeners from South Punjab. she told him, okay, take my son to your regions, to Reshma or wherever. So, because of that, I have so much exposure to the region. And she had done a lot of other stuff which has really, really shaped me. I mean, I got to meet Abida Parveen because of her. So that's another story in itself.
Let's actually get to that story. So wait, I'll just show you guys as well. So this is Mobeen's first book. It's called Dharkan. Mobeen, why did you decide to make a book, and what was the inspiration behind the first book, Dharkan?
So I was in college and I was in final year in NCA at that time, and at that time everybody kind of questioned their purpose in life, as to what they're doing. And I was doing my thesis, and during your thesis you really try to figure out what you want to do, what you want to educate the audience with. And I was already doing photography as it is, and at that time my motive was to try and maybe promote an alternate image of Pakistan or something, because the image of Pakistan at that time was homeland. And what that's all about. I was like, hey, we don't speak Arabic, this is not Afghanistan or something like that. And at that time when you're depicting a city like Islamabad, so I was
like a desert.
And because of the kind of exposure that I have, and because this society was very, very kind to me despite my hearing loss, I wanted to give back to the society and as an artist. So I said, well, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a lawyer. So what can I do with what I can do? And so I decided to just try and explore some landscapes at first. So my book was not in a book form before. At that time, it was just Yahoo groups or Flickr. So I wanted to make a series of photographs in the pre-social media time. And so my dad was also constantly talking about a lot of our unsung heroes, because he was saying that we have a lot of selective amnesia, that we tend to only remember our icons when they passed away. And I wanted to change that. And so the irony is, half the people in my book have actually passed away. And so one day in college, I was passing by this guy who was 104 years old, and he was a wrestler. Aladad Palwan was his name. And he was always talking about wanting to continue training the wrestlers. He had a wrestling ring behind my college. I went to NC Rawalpindi, which is in Liaquat Bagh, and a lot of amazing, history and culture that you have there. And being exposed to that made me want to explore that topic. So he was always talking about when you used to have a wrestling match in pre-partition before 1947, you used to get a train from Lahore to Rawalpindi, you used to get 100 rupees, and that was the championship. And then I realized that every person we pass has a story to tell. So I decided to photograph randomly. I just said Kawatji. Now, I just said Kawatji was a very brave journalist. And once I photographed him, then I realized there's so many icons in our midst, famous people as well as unknown people. So that culminated in form of a book.
And how did you get in touch with all of these famous people? There's a lot of famous people in this book. How did you meet them?
I got very lucky. I got very lucky. But Aditya Kawatji, I truly am very, very thankful to him, because he is a giant of a journalist. He was just amazing. It's just larger than life. I dropped him an email and I said, sir, I am just a student, but my dad reads your articles. My grandparents, they read your articles. I have read your articles. I don't have much of a portfolio, but I'll be in town and I'm hoping to do something. I don't know what it will be. मुझे नहीं पता ये. तो मैं आपकी तस्वीर अगर बना सकता हूँ. And he replied in like 30 minutes. He's like, okay, call me when you land. Okay.
Wow.
Landed, called him, and then he invited me to his place. Very intimidating, because he was always very cursing and very straightforward. And it was like I was being grilled. जैसे वो NCA में जो teachers नहीं होता, so I was almost feeling like that, and I had to justify what I was doing. Why do you want to do this? Why are you not including this person? Why this? Why? He was asking this question. And I was fumbling a lot in my answers, but ultimately I came up with the answer that I want to celebrate the best of us. And I don't want future generation to forget people like you. And he just looked at me for 1 minute, just looked dead straight into my eyes. I said, okay. Do whatever you want to do. So I just took a few pictures, and then he said, okay, I want these pictures the next day. I want these pictures tomorrow, these printouts. So I was in Karachi. I don't know who to get it printed from. There was no smartphone at that time, right? To show him the pictures. I printed those photographs and I showed it to him. And he took me to meet an artist. He was very happy with the pictures. He said, okay, I'm going to take you to meet an artist. And that guy ended up designing my book. That was Imran Mir. He's passed away since long, but I owe a lot to these two gentlemen because they really, really guided me and they opened the doors for me. As for how I would get in touch with other people, I would just drop a message on their social media. This was before social media became social media. By the virtue of being NCA student, I had access to a lot of people because, most of my teachers or my friends were friends with them.
Right.
Aram Naeem, Saeed Akhtar, Mirza Safi, basically the NCA alumni, Imran Qureshi. So that is how I would approach them.
And you made a music video as well, right? So you made something for Noori. Did you make something for Noori?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Tell us a little bit about that.
It was just amazing. I should have mentioned Noori as well because when I started as a photographer, Noori had just released the first album. Now, one half of Noori, Ali Hamza, was my brother's classmate in Lums. And both of them founded the Music Society with a few other guys. And so Hamza and my brother, everybody, they kept in touch. And so in 2003, they released the first album. And it was my first or second year in photography. And they were looking for a photographer in Islamabad to cover the concert. Probably my concert, F7 mein.
I went to that concert.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was in France. I went to that concert. Yeah.
Fond memory. Do you remember Ali Noor wearing the white t-shirt?
Yeah, I remember that concert.
That's amazing. So that was actually my first exposure to concept photography. And so they said, okay, we want you to cover our concert. And now with very basic amateurish training, I had to figure out how to work with like a very fast shutter speed, with aperture, because there's a lot of movement involved. And these concerts had a lot of low lighting. You remember that? There was just one spotlight. There was no light really. And I was just using my Kodak. And then ultimately I moved to a Fuji film. And then later a Nikon in 2005. So Noori had a lot to do with my journey as a photographer. And during the pandemic, I became very close to these guys. Now, Ball was a song which is very close to my heart.
Why?
Because every time I was studying in O levels, I would listen to it. It was the sound of your inner being, and the way they were talking about it. And it had so many layers. अब वो कहते हैं कि साये थे पाते में क्यों मैं खोया. अब साये, it can be like people and it can be shadows. You can see it both ways. And I would keep listening to it. I'm also a musician part-time. And so I learned how to play that song. And I was in awe of how Ali Noor put together the composition. Like how he tuned down one half to distinct and how he played with arpeggios. And that combined with Jafri, Gambi, Hamza, everybody. And at this point, I had made 2 films. And I really wanted to make a music video. Now during the pandemic, I was like, because during the pandemic, everybody had that inner person screaming. During the lockdown, everybody was frustrated. Now this song, Ball, was doing that for me. So I said, I have to do this. Even if it's not for you guys, let me do it for me. But I need you guys to be a part of this. And they were very grateful. They came to Islamabad just to get their scene shot. It was just more of an experimental video. Quite a learning experience. And I'm very grateful to Ali Noor, Ali Hamza for letting me direct my first music video with such a major band.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if they're old friends. That was a great opportunity for me. Lots of fond memories.
And you mentioned films. What were your films about?
My first film is called Hellhole. It's about sanitation workers, about gutter cleaners, basically. So my first book actually had a picture of a person called Akram Masi, who is a sanitation worker. And he told me the most gut-wrenching story. These guys would get paid 5,000 rupees every month, and somehow 1,000 wouldn't make it, so they would get 4,000. And now this is for a profession where they have to be almost naked, getting down there, being exposed to all sorts of gases, and your life expectancy actually goes down to 65 because of this profession. And he said, I said, why do you do that? आप तो आपके बच्चे जो हैं पढ़े लिखे हैं, आपका जो सेंस ऑफ ह्यूमर है वो बड़ा ज़बरदस्त है और आपकी बड़ी नॉलेज है. तो वो कहता है कि अगर हम नहीं करेंगे तो कौन करेगा ये. तो उसने बताया कि एक दफ़ा ऐसा हुआ था कि सैनिटेशन वर्कर्स जो वो हड़ताल पे चले गए. They went on a strike and for 3 days and the streets were just flooded. So they really are, like really pulse of the nation, pulse of the society. It's a very invisible profession, and I wanted to do a short silent film based on that, no dialogue, because this is not something that is just something to do with Pakistan, but also in Bangladesh, India, and in some parts of South Africa as well. And so the person in the movie is not this guy; it's his uncle, just a much older person. So that's my first film. मेरी जो दूसरी फिल्म है उसका नाम है लेडी ऑफ द एमरल्ड स्कार्फ, and it's about this carpet weaver in Hunza, Upper Hunza, Gulmet mein. Her name is Aziza. So it's about how she makes, how she connects with the mountains, with her surroundings, and she provides for her family, and she, does a lot of shepherding as well. So what is just common knowledge for people in the area? It was fascinating to me, and I wanted to make another short silent film. So that was.
And do you enjoy filmmaking more or photography?
Photography, definitely photography. Filmmaking is just something I do time to time, every 5 years or something. But photography always has been my primary field.
And what do you want your legacy to be in photography?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. If I have a portrait of a person from Kalash, and if a person from, let's say, Portugal or from Italy is looking at it, now the viewer and the woman in the picture speak a completely different language. They don't know each other. But yet they would connect to this photograph. So I would want my photograph to be something that would transcend barriers, which is the whole purpose of art, at least for me. And to bridge all kind of divides, cultural or any. And because Pakistan has a very shared history with the world, I mean, beyond Mughal Empire, there is so much to do it. So I feel it's very interconnected. And I've spent the last few years exploring heritage sites which are not known to people. And I would like for it to know the best in us. Recently, I had posted a photograph on my Facebook, and that was something to do with that was in Pata basically, and I had just posted a photograph, just random picture of myself, and somebody posted, "Oh, why don't I see pictures of what's happening in our country, the multiple crises and everything that we have?" But I was like, there are plenty of pictures, articles, and news about that in the world. We are caught in the discourse. I want to provide an alternate discourse. Because wherever you go, whether you go in a taxi or anywhere, politics will always be the first topic.
Of course.
And being politically aware is great, but we are so much more than that. So much more than just earning money or politics.
Yeah.
So through art, through all of this, I wanted to provide a world of fascination. Earlier, I mentioned Star Wars to you. Star Wars is very important for my inner child. It's about pursuing your dream, no matter what you do, no matter who you are. And that's the childlike fantasy is something that I also want to explore through my photographs. Never to be afraid of your inner child.
And I'll come back to the heritage sites. One quick question: what's your favorite Star Wars film? 1 through 9. Which one's your favorite Star Wars?
Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, it's hard to choose. But yeah, that would be it.
Return of the Jedi for me. I like that more. Achha, so let's move on to your second book now, which is called, I'll show you guys, sorry, White in the Flag. I don't know if you can see it. We'll link it as well in the description.
You can unseal it.
Yeah. So what's White in the Flag about?
Whiten the Flag is based on religious minorities of Pakistan, their lives and festivities. And because if you look at the bigger picture, there's the potential here to be a pluralistic society or has this shared history because we have Zoroastrians, Parsis, Hindus, Christians, Sikhs, Baha'is, Kalash, and a lot of important heritage sites or important religious sites of Sikhism are in Pakistan. Nankana Sahib and Panja Sahib, Kartarpur. And because Muhammad Ali Jinnah Quaid-e-Azam always emphasized on rights of minorities, and he said, you're free to go to your churches, temples, and it had nothing to do with affairs of the state. And I wanted to do justice to that. Also, my grandmother, who I spoke about, her only best friend in life was a Parsi, Rubina Kolumbawala. So even after she left India, they continued writing letters to each other. And when they no longer could, they would remember each other fondly. I don't know about Rubina, but I'm sure she would feel the same way. But my grandmother would definitely remember her a lot. And she would speak about the different traditions, cultures, about different Parsi customs as well. And the most important thing, I think the biggest inspiration for this book is a few years before I was born, my dad had abdominal tuberculosis. और उसकी वजह से he lost a lot of blood and he needed 2 bags of blood, basically O positive, which is very, very rare. Now his best friend stepped up and donated him blood. Now his best friend's name is Ronald Kitab. We call him Johnny Uncle. And he just happened to be a Christian. And so at a very early age, it made me realize no matter your blood, faith, caste, creed, all blood, it's all blood is the same. It's all humanity. We're all connected by humanity. And because of Johnny Uncle, my dad's life was saved. So we also grew up going to, being invited to Easter or Christmas gatherings. So I started working on this book at the same time as my first one. Because if I would go to Karachi, I would photograph people as well as places of worship over there. And this is the second edition of Whiting the Flag because it's a very big topic. The first edition came out in 2017 for Pakistan's 70th birthday. It's published by Markings Publishing, and the second edition came out last year because a lot happened on the 7th by the time the 75th Independence Day rolled around. So this is an ongoing journey.
And now that you've met people from minorities across Pakistan, do you feel like they have the same rights as we do? Or are they, objectified more than the Muslims are?
I have to be honest, they are not quite granted the same rights, or we have a long way to go. There's a lot more awareness when it comes to mainstream media, but there's still a lot of prejudice. Sometimes it's very casual. We don't like the work. Sanitation worker jobs, they are advertised to minority religions, and sometimes you still see it in, there's a lot of inequality still, but there's a lot more awareness. I'm not sure how to mention this. I'm not sure how to talk about this, but I've noted that there are some groups which sometimes have it better, but largely from sort of staying out of the scene, staying under the radar. But I'm hopeful that would change with time, because if you would see some of our politicians, they would sort of take part in Diwali or Holi or something. You would see them doing that.
Right.
Now, whatever the purpose of that is, I think for me that would paint a larger picture of wanting to promote interfaith harmony. And I think the key is in more awareness of other religions that we have in Pakistan, because we have so many here. And I think with Kartarpur's emergence, I think a lot of us are very embracing of, the Sikh communities. So I believe there's more emergence, more awareness due to social media. There is more tolerance than there was before. Uh, at least as far as I understand. But there's a long, long way to go.
And you mentioned heritage sites. What do you think are, if I haven't been anywhere in Pakistan, what are the 3 places that you think I should visit and have the most potential to see?
Heritage sites, like religious heritage sites, or like any.
Anything.
There are lots of them. I mean, I'm sure you know about the Wall City of Lahore. That's why everybody's been there. But I think I'm fascinated by this place called Kashmir's Mats. Kashmir's Mats is this network of caves which is in Rustam.
Okay.
Rustam is a town which is on the outskirts of Mardan. And I just discovered it last year. And I went with a friend of mine, Shabaz. You have to drive for about 2-3 hours, and then you have to do some climbing and trekking for another hour. You go inside, and there's a network of caves going for 30 kilometers.
Wow.
And there's actually structures inside it. There's still some standing structures inside. Apparently, it used to be ruled by the White Huns from 4th to 9th century AD. And it used to be ruled by various kings and a queen called Lana Dori. And although the KP Archaeology Department, I think they're planning to do some work, I think that's a site really worth checking out. It's really scary being there because it's dark. There are lots of rats over there.
And 30 kilometers of cave.
30 kilometers. Yeah, I mean, we almost lost our way. That's something I would truly recommend. And I hope that it is open for tourism soon. Peshawar, Khyber Bazaar. I mean, Bhera, I love Bhera because it's full of old doors, old streets. And there's this town called Hadro in Attak. I really, really like that because if you go there, it's like time has just stood still. It's not polished, it's just the same. It has that halfway point between past and present. But if you go there still, it's just like, everything is preserved as it is. I love that place and I have gone there about 3 to 4 times. Then there are obviously a lot of old mosques and places in Skadu and lots of heritage sites. It's very hard to choose one.
No, that's fascinating actually. We'll check those out. I won't take much more of your time. Just one last question. You're working on a 3rd book, right? What's that about?
My 3rd book is called Mirat. It's the same theme as my 1st book, to celebrate the iconic people of Pakistan, but a different set of people. So in this book, you have people like Syed Babar Ali, Dr. Sania Nishtar, Dr. Adib Rizvi, Rohail Hayat, the late Junaid Jamshed, the late Reshma. So it's called Mirat because it is about hereditary. And there are some points in the story where it's about passing on the torch. So it's a mix of people who were pioneers like Farida Khanum, and then you have young activists and up-and-coming people who were there. For example, one example of heritage or passing the torch would be one of the people in the book is Justice Nasser Iqbal.
Okay.
She was the first justice of the Lahore High Court, female judge of High Court in Lahore. And now you have the first female judge in Supreme Court, Justice Aisha Malik. So now, it's like, one of them paved way for the other. And it's so there are lots of other examples in the book. How an actor would pave way for the other, how a cricketer would do this for the other, and how actions of one would lead for the other one. Because a lot of people in this book, they actually work together. Also for the future, when it comes to Chilean Literature Festival, or education, or robotics labs, or preserving music heritage. That's what I want to celebrate. So that's Mirat. That's my 3rd book, upcoming one.
Chalo, yeah, we look forward to it. How long till it comes out?
I hope within this year. I hope within the next 1 year. I just finished the last shoot, and right now the text is being proofread right now by Adele Griffith in UK, and then we're going to move into the design stage. So hopefully in a year or so.
Chalo, good. Yeah, thank you so much for being on the podcast. You're an inspiration to all of us. Thank you guys for watching. If you like our content, please do subscribe to our channel, and we will see you for the next podcast.